Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Lifters League podcast, the Strength and Muscle Science podcast. I'm Ben Ashmole. As ever, I'm joined by world-class strength coach Gus Cook. And who have we got today, Gus?
Zen. We have Zen from...
Not Zena.
No, the warrior princess. From Swift Academy... What's it again?
Swift Movement Academy.
Swift Movement Academy. I remember you came to one of my
I did.
workshops. You stood out. But actually, since then, I actually followed you and liked a lot of your work.
Thanks.
Definitely resonated with some of your philosophies behind approach to rehabilitation and training, coaching. I think some of we're seeing the same similarities we're seeing across a lot of the coaches that we're bringing on and clinicians, the holistic approach to addressing issues or progressing in sport or overcoming.
Which workshop was it, just out of interest?
I think it was just one of your intro to powerlifting, the big three.
I think that was one of my really early ones. Really, really early ones, yeah. You're the head. What do you call yourself? The head exercise.
Yeah,
or head coach, or would you?
Yeah, up until last week, it was just me. So now there is another practitioner on board, which is very exciting. So business is growing, and she's amazing. And she actually doesn't graduate from exercise physiology until the end of the year, but well above anyone else I've seen at her level, and she's actually a powerlifter, and she's got some pretty good numbers. So I mean, she walks the walk really well. So just culturally, a really great fit. And I was getting so many inquiries. I had a wait list of 16 people. So
Right, okay.
I can't service everyone. So she's the next best thing.
So your core business, just to clarify, is injury rehabilitation.
I guess, yeah. So the way that I talk about it is that, and I guess my mission statement is that we use education and empowerment to help people self-manage their own injuries.
Excellent.
So it is one-on-one coaching, and as an exercise physiologist, that qualifies me to do, I guess, the middle ground work between physiotherapy and personal training.
Yeah.
So it basically encompasses everything from, your baseline level, you've got an injury, or, you need something rehabbed, all the way through to I just get a little bit of niggling pain in certain lifts, or, I just need some help with guidance or whatnot, or they just want someone who's got a little bit more expertise to be able to safely and effectively train them.
So are you more, in a sense, bringing up as a, I guess, treatment and coaching? Is that what you're trying to do? Is that kind of the approach you're taking, where you're trying to bring more to the equation, I guess?
Yeah, well, I guess, so exercise physiology is a pretty, new discipline. In terms of treatment, it's all exercise treatment. So we use exercise as medicine. There is no hands-on manual therapy. There's no diagnostic testing or anything like that. So basically we can get the information from a physio or whatever saying this is what they've got, and then we run with it. So, someone's torn their ACL, we can take them all the way through that process. And I think physiotherapy does a really good job at that initial, very acute, you wake up in the morning and you literally can't move or rotate, and you just need some sort of hands-on treatment to help support that to get you started. But once the ball's rolling, or, once you're reducing your pain and you're ready to move or reintroduce back to the gym, I think there's a massive gap, because people I hear stories of where people have gone to the physio. It's 1 or 2 sessions. It's cool, you're pain-free, see you later. Do what you want to do. And it's yeah, I'm pain-free when I'm at rest sitting down, but I want an Olympic lift and I can't put a barbell over my head. That is the gap that we fill. So, that between and inclusive of pain to performance, as opposed to either just that early stage or, like when they are really performing, it's sort of bridges that gap for people.
It's just more like trying to find that fundamental source of the trigger and addressing things in a very holistic approach from treating the pain to movement.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I think people misinterpret like being out of pain as like, oh, I'm good, I'm fine. And it's like, yeah, but what got you into this spot in the first place, and why does it keep recurring, and why aren't you strong enough to be in the positions that you're trying to force your body in work or in the gym or whatever? And exactly what you said, Gus, like not addressing the underlying issues. They're just getting that quick Band-Aid fix from a health professional who's like, cool, you're good now, see you later. And then they think they're good, and then the cycle repeats. Yeah. So I got a lot of people who are so frustrated because they've gone through that cycle 3, 4, 5, 6 times over the course of years. And they're like, how can I stop this from ever being an issue? Not just for fucking 3 weeks so I can,
So I hear a lot of that with them, specifically with deadlifts. Like, we talked a lot about deadlifts. I had a problem with deadlifts. Anyway, I got told by multiple people, you just shouldn't deadlift. Like, you're just not built for deadlifting.
Who were the people telling you that?
Right. So these are all. So I've had a huge history of hamstring tears. Mm-hmm. I played soccer professionally when I was a kid, and it just plagued me. It was back in the day before strength training was introduced to team sports at all. So I was just weak, overweight. I wasn't built to play the sport. And so the injuries happened.
Hamstrings are like high-speed running meters, and hamstring tears are like the most common thing, especially if you don't have the strength eccentrically to support the force that you're trying to produce.
Exactly. Anyway, so I've been plagued with it for years. I got ultrasounded to fucking death. We spoke with Andrew a lot. Like, everyone would just fucking ultrasound me. And then got into the gym, and my lower back would just. I deadlift, and a couple of weeks into deadlifting, I just, outside of training, lower back stiffens up every morning, can barely move. And I go to people, and and multiple people said, one of them was a chiropractor. He was like, just some people just can't deadlift, and it's a dangerous movement, is what I've heard a lot. Like, it's a dangerous movement. That anyway, I did 20 minutes with Gus, and I've been fucking hammering the deadlifts, no problems.
Yeah,
and I just bad technique, just a bad technique.
But
right?
the other thing is, like, obviously you need accessories to support
of
that.
Course,
which obviously Gus would be all over. But the other thing is, like, how heavy did that chiro lift, if anything? Where are you getting these sources of information from? Like, I get a lot of people who come to me, and it's even like a specialist, like sports doctor or someone who's got these massive qualifications, and I'm like, but what are they actually doing? Like, are they in the field? Have they been there? Do they actually understand? Or are they just, I think people sort of blanket coats certain exercises or movements, and they're like, oh, they're bad for you, or just don't do those because it's safer on their fucking insurance to say, like, oh, if you don't do this, therefore they're fine. And it's like, but if the people want to do that, find them a way to do it, as opposed to just demonizing one movement, especially if it's something like a deadlift, when you're going to fucking move house and try to pick up a fridge. Like, you can't.
That's it, yeah.
I think this is where, like, we just said this with Will, we're not robots. We're not a bunch of data and ranges that have been picked up from, general population studies, and do we fit the mold or do we fit those molds? But every single person is individual, and everyone's individual. Our approach to each individual needs to be specific to them. And I think when you've also practiced it yourself, we understand what is applicable, what isn't applicable, and we're not just this bunch of information that especially when you learn in academia. I mean, there's so much, it's a lot of information, but it's just what is how much importance does each thing have? And sometimes there's a lot of people out there who can break the mold quite a bit, and some people's personality traits or specific injuries to various sports.
I think people get almost like, it's hard because in a lot of academics they get like paralysis by analysis, because they're like, I can't do this and I can't do that and I can't do that, so I'm just going to fucking lift nothing. And it's like, okay, but that's not helping the scenario. So it's required to take a step back and sort of not only look at like who and where are you getting this information from? Like, have you actually sought out someone who's been in a scenario or works with people like this? Or, you know, like athletes tear hamstrings and all sorts of injuries all the time, and then 3 weeks later they're back on the field. Like, why are we treating bodies so fragile? Yeah. It's frustrating.
We forget the human. I think I've said this before. You know, if we were that sensitive, you know, we would have died out 30,000 years ago. We're resilient and very adaptive.
Absolutely. And the body's elastic. Like, it's got an element of plasticity, and so it adapts to what you put it through. And so, yeah, maybe you can't deadlift 100 kilos after you've torn your hamstring without, you know, addressing technique and addressing the hamstring deficiency that you have. But it doesn't mean that the deadlift is that thing that needs to be thrown away.
But I think if your goal is to remove, I think a lot of practitioners, well, their goal is to remove the pain complaint, and the easiest way to do that is just not to do the movement at all. Yeah, right. Like that's an easy. If they don't come back, I've kind of done my job. Is what a lot of practitioners will probably think.
I was talking to someone the other day, and they're talking about apparently Google originally had this statement, and it was like their mission statement was "do no evil," and it's like, but are you actually doing any good? Like, if you do nothing, you might not be doing evil, but you're not actually benefiting anyone or anything. So are you just negating the positive because you're like sitting just above maintenance level, or like at maintenance level, but you're not actually striving for anything in your life?
Yeah,
good point. And another thing you covered there that Andrew mentioned when we were talking about it, because Gus rehabbed a pec tear in a time frame that sounded ridiculous to me, but obviously you did it and it makes sense. But he mentioned that we have the habit of training muscles to be lumps of meat, basically like this whole idea that you just don't move them until you're completely pain-free, and then just go 100% into the movement again, rather than training the muscle to become what it's supposed to be again, you know, active recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. And the more and more that people finally are, you know, getting out of potential surgeries and whatever, it's like, get up immediately, go walk, go do this, go be active, go start. Like, the fact that injury protocols are now, like it used to be RICE, rest, ice, compression, elevation. Yep. And then it was recipe, it was rest, elevation, compression, ice, passive exercise. And then now it's like this other acronym like peace and love. I don't remember what it stands for. But basically it's like passive exercise is like one of the first things that you do. And then you start to move. And I think the L for love is like loading and things like that. So we've come a long way. I just think that it's potentially like, we know this, but general population is still like, oh, like I'll still get text messages from people. Oh, I roll my ankle, I'm putting ice on it. I'm like, no. Like ice is like a freezer. It's just pausing and delaying the process of inflammation. And like, our body's smart. Like, if you are injured, it's sending inflammation to the area for a reason, so that it can send blood and nutrients that come with that to help to actually heal what's going on. Ice is just an analgesic. So it's just like, if you're in incredible pain, sure. But every other time I recommend heat, or just, you know, moving lightly through like a little bit of pain is okay. Like, we're not going to break going into a 2 out of 10 pain. Like, you don't have to be pain-free is not the goal. I don't. Probably controversial.
No, it is because I used to get the fucking bag of ice, cling wrap.
Oh God!
Fucking every time just wrap around my leg, and I used to walk around surrounded by ice all the time. Like, just sat up on the couch, leg up. Yeah,
not doing any movement. Actually, doing more harm than good. Yeah,
prepping the hamstring just to tear again immediately, straight away afterwards. Yeah.
Actually, I'm interested to know, like, what you got. Like, we also obviously try and get people out of pain. I've recently taken on. When I had Lifters League, the gym, only worked with powerlifters and athletes and stuff. So since I've come out, I've started taking on a broad spectrum of
Gen Pop clients and
Gen
stuff.
Pop clients again and stuff, and noticing the massive difference in pain threshold.
Oh yeah.
Oh, this is an interesting story. Yeah, okay, go on. Yeah.
So it's what's your approach? Because like I'll have someone join up and they'll complain about this and complain about that, and it's like, okay, well, what's the scale? About a 1?
They want to let you know with everything.
Yeah.
But it's so athletes and Gen Pops are literally the complete opposites. You tell an athlete to do 10, they do 30. You tell Gen Pops to do 10, they do 2 maybe on a good day.
Right.
So like I think they're honestly like training completely different species almost. Like they don't have the same mindset or mentality, and you know, some people want the bare minimum and some people will go over the top. So you have to, I guess, understand the nuances and the differences and the drivers of people. Like some people just want to, you know, have their 45 minutes and then that's them for the week or whatever it is. Whereas athletes are like, how do I get that 0.1% better?
How do you go about trying to get people to, let's say we're very far on the spectrum of like very low pain threshold. Well, at some point, like there's always a niggle. There's always something else like, okay, there's something there. Let's see how we go next week. Goes away. Okay. Don't worry. And if it's not reoccurring, okay, not a problem. So what about those people, those really low thresholds? I mean, what's your approach with those people? Like, are we going to like
cotton wool wrap them?
Are we going to try and address it, or is like, do you start to educate them in a way that's like how to think about that?
Yeah, super interesting question. I think I'm probably a little bit more aggressive in my approach with that. Some people come to me and because they think rehab, they think pain. And so they're always like, oh, I'm coming to Zenia for pain or rehab, or like I need to, or like that's their forethought. And I literally, like, I've got students who are with me at the moment. I'm like, that's the last thing you want to be talking about with them. Like the more you reinforce that, the more they feed into that, and the more they're going to continue to talk about that and think that that's, you know, like that's what we want, or that's what, you know, like that's the focus. And especially with, you know, physiotherapy, chiropractic, whatever, like you're going there and they talk, how's your pain? How's it now? How's it like pain? But what happens after that? And some people, like a lot of the time I think it's at least 50% of low back pain cases, like after 2 weeks, it'll just go away by itself. We're changing nothing. And I think that people, and rightly so, like I have a lot of clients who, you know, they've had recurring things or whatever, so they've become like hyper aware or hypersensitive to anything. And so I often have, and, you know, some clients who I'm working through, it's effectively like pain management, like psychology almost, where I literally say to them, I'm like, okay, what's your pain at? Sometimes I don't even say that, but like, you know, if they're a little bit sensitive towards it, I'm like, like in their first session or whatever, it's like, what's your pain at? It's like, oh, it's a 5 or whatever. I'm like, cool. If it doesn't increase, we're not talking about it. Like if it stays the same or it gets better, it's a non-issue. Like I don't use the word pain in their session. I don't talk about it. I think it's just that's highlighting and focusing around pain as like the goal, when I think capacity and performance and ability is way more important. Like I don't care if your pain stays at a 4 out of 10 for 3 weeks if you previously couldn't touch the floor and now you can bend all the way down and, you know, or pick up your kids or whatever it was, you know, you can't put your hand behind your back and now, you know, you're overhead pressing or whatever. Like I think that's a lot better of a goal to be focusing on, is their capacity, and that brings them a sense of achievement and purpose, as opposed to like, oh, now I'm out of pain. And then also they're like, oh, cool, now I don't have to do anything. Now I'm done. This process, tick off, done. Like no more strength or no more whatever, because I've reached the goal. But people just can't see past, like a lot of people that I see can't see past pain. Like getting pain free is their goal, but it's not. Like no one's goal is to just live like at the baseline level. People do have aspirations. You just have to sort of break down those barriers and build them up and help them believe that you can get past, like pain is 0. It's not negatives, but you're not at like you're 10 out of 10 positives.
I've seen people who've been in pain for so long it's almost, it defines them, and trying to change that language and the way they try to approach training, that everything about training becomes just hypersensitive because they've just created this narrative.
Yeah. I think it's hard too because people will come to me because of pain, or, I think a lot of PTs don't get the credit that they deserve because they're like, oh, what would you know about it? And, arguably they're not qualified to work in that space, but I think I can say the exact same thing as a personal trainer and be like, it's fine, you're okay, because I have some letters at the end of my name. People listen to me. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's like that reassurance from someone who they trust is all that they need.
Right. My impression of, like, my observation of Gen Pop also, I guess I am Gen Pop. I like to think I'm not, but I fucking am. But, like, for Gen Pop, DOMS falls under pain management. Like, that literally, they don't see it as a recovery kind of indicator. They see it as a reason to suggest the training's wrong. Even like DOMS, which is just a part of recovery, right? Like that, the threshold for that is that's a reason to pull back rather than to recover better or whatever it is. Like it's like saying somebody who wants to squat, you're doing it wrong if you ever have any knee aches. It's like it's kind of going to come in there at some point, right? And it doesn't mean you're injured, No,
not necessarily. I guess like it eventually. I mean, it comes and goes. I mean, injuries, but it depends on what I'm doing and what kind of phases we are in training. If I'm in competition, it's always
it's going to happen.
It's going to happen. How can I best manage it, and can I not make it worse? And what can I change? How can I change my training to reduce that impact? But it's not for me. I mean, again, this is a different scenario. It's those I should be setting myself up before a competition to not let that happen in the first place. Whatever that trigger is.
But if you're pushing the envelope, like you only know when you've got to an 11 after the fact.
Yeah.
Like
100%. Yeah.
Like sometimes, I mean, and that's, like if you're going to work to be the best in the world at anything, like you're going to be teetering on that like edge of that mountaintop. Like you're either at the top, climbing at the top, or you're falling down there. Like, and I guess if that's the goal to be world class, then that's the risk you take. Because you don't know what your body's capable of, and if you've never been there before and if you're still climbing, then you take as many measures as you can, but at the end of the day, like that learning curve and that process of like everyone's gone too far and gone, oh, probably shouldn't have done that, but then you realize for next time and then you're better prepared.
Here's a question. Is pain and injury part of the journey?
Part of the journey of just life?
Is it? Are you saying is it a good thing? Like not a good thing, but
is
inevitable?
Is it part of the journey of becoming good?
Yeah,
competing. Would you?
I mean, I don't think anyone's gone through any sort of competition injury free forever.
Yeah.
And I think, and I actually did a podcast with Brandon Greco and Johnny Bbad. Recently, other powerlifters. Yeah, for other people. And what were we talking about? We were talking about like if you aren't pushing the envelope or whatever, like if you're not working towards, or if you've never been in pain, then you're probably not performing. Like
I think something sound counterintuitive, because like we work hard to never let pain come, like, but everyone ends up in pain at some point.
Yeah,
at some point in time, or getting injured.
Which is why I talk about injury management instead of injury prevention, because I think injury prevention is again that low level, like you're not pushing, and it's just a conversation around how you approach it. I think is important, and understanding that, and I think like all of us have obviously had injuries, and I think that we're all better coaches because of it. And I think I put up a post recently saying Like, I actually think that it's beneficial for everyone to experience pain and to go through that. Like, if you imagine like the things that have made you the strongest in your life, it's all super painful, whether physically or emotionally or whatever. They're very painful experiences at the time. But if you can push through those barriers and come out the other side, you're way better off.
I think I really like that language, injury management.
Yeah,
Because when
you just,
it seems small, but comparing injury prevention to injury management, I mean, just assumes, because you come across people all the time. It's like they're injured, I stop. It's like, no, we've never just stopped, because some people will stop with some of the smallest things, and I've had athletes with horrific injuries. You know, the common one is disc injuries. You know, but we still get through their training. Obviously the whole process changes, but mentally they don't want to stop, and there is a solution.
Yeah.
You know, and so they manage their pain, they manage their injury all the way through, and if anything, they become better athletes. A lot of my athletes who have had serious injuries have ended up being so much better.
Yeah.
Coming out the other end.
Absolutely. I train at like a current 3-time world champion bodybuilder, and she has had the most horrific injuries, but she's literally top of the world in her specific area of training, and she is so diligent and she's so on board with everything I say. And I'm like, okay, well, you've had previous like hamstring issues and whatnot, which is what I was going to say to you before. I was like, we're going to start sprint training, which is the hardest thing ever for hamstrings, and you probably cringe just at that thought, but it's like, you need to like they have so much more trust in the process, and they understand, and they will do all their prehab, and they will make sure that they're doing as much as they can. Whereas some little 21-year-old who's, fresh and roses is like, oh yeah, cool, I'm unbreakable. And they're just like, I don't need to do all this extra shit.
So do we change the language? I mean, with expectation, when it comes to injuries, like, it's gonna happen, or what's the language using? We get someone new, we know want to push the envelope, we know what's gonna happen. I mean, what kind of language are you using for those people? You know it's gonna happen one day.
Yeah, I think it's hard. I think potentially with athletes, yes. I think for Gen Pops, it's a different conversation, because they're more terrified of that, and I guess athletes too. Like, they don't want a serious injury that knocks them out of competing, but I definitely think that we need to have a better understanding of the fact that pain is inevitable. It's what makes us human. 80% of adults have experienced low back pain in their life. Like, it's not going to be your ending career or movement journey. And exercise makes it better. And I'm so grateful for the people who are in the field of exercise research who are now putting out papers finally about like the benefits of movement and exercise and how that should be our go-to treatment. I love the fact that physios and chiros and whatever are all trying to jump into the exercise space to help out. I just think that some of them are probably not qualified to go through that full journey, which is why exercise physiologists exist, like pass on or refer on when it's outside your scope of practice, but definitely use exercise as your primary modality to help someone, and education. They're the two biggest things.
It always seems to be, no matter what, it's like the foundations of, what do you call it, the foundations of managing a healthy life, no matter what. It's always this, it's just exercise, nutrition. If we haven't even exercise, nutrition, mindset, all these basic holistic things. I mean, eventually, if we just haven't even addressed those simple things, I mean, how do we know if other things, how do we know if there's something else? I don't know how to put this. It's like the holistic approach to addressing, I guess, any. Let's talk about, let's scrap what I just say. I feel like
fuck that.
Something in my head, and I can't seem to bring it out. We just had a conversation before we started, and you're talking about how personal trainers got it right, got something right.
Yeah.
What was that about?
I think so. We're talking about how health professionals and in that industry, they sort of do 1, 2, 3 sessions maybe, and then they send you on their way. And it's like, these are the most, on paper, qualified people to be able to help you to deal with your pain or your injury or whatever. But you're not going to be fixed after 3 sessions. There's no chance that you've built the strength back required to not have that injury recur. No chance. 3 sessions? Are you kidding? Have you done 3 sessions with someone and they've been strong enough to, like, it doesn't happen. So I think what I was saying with personal trainers getting it right is that they do look long term. And they do go, hey, you know, you want to gain 20 kilos to your squat, or you want to lose 10 kilos or whatever it is. Like, these goals are big, and you can't, like, the health practitioners, I think as a whole, we are doing the industry a disservice by trying to give all our knowledge in 2 sessions and then be like, see you later. Like, you're fine when I think we have so much more opportunity to be able to continue that. But I guess it's hard when people go, oh, I'm not in pain, I don't need to see the physio. And it's like,
do you feel you get put in that category of?
I feel I'm sort of in the middle, you know, like I said before, it's sort of between that physical therapist and that personal trainer is where I sit. But it does need to be a continuum and a spectrum. And sure, maybe you see the physio for a couple sessions, but then what are you doing? Like, all health practitioners and professionals should be referring on, because there is no way in hell that you have completely rehabilitated someone after 2 sessions. It's just not going to happen. Like, could you imagine, like, if you had all this traumatic, like PTSD or whatever, and you went and saw a psych for 2 sessions, and they're like, you're cured. It's like, no, you're not.
No,
like, you've just literally started the process. And people, I think they obviously everyone wants a quick fix. Like, but if you actually want to change your life and improve for the long term and have this longevity, then that is years, not sessions.
How do you get that across to someone who comes to you? I'm in pain, you know, and they want to achieve something. What is the process you're going through to get them out of that mindset of, I need to get out of pain, to having this process to long-term management?
Yeah. So I guess the first thing is, like, asking them their goals. Most of the time it's, I want to be pain-free. And I'm like, okay, cool. I usually use the term like, okay, magic bubble. I click my fingers. We are 12 months in the future. I can guarantee you, in this magic bubble, you will never get injured again. You are pain-free. What are you actually doing? And I think that helps people, because some people people can't see past the pain. And you say 12 months time you're pain-free, and they're like, oh, and like, that might never happen. It may never happen. They may always get some sort of niggle recurring in the background thing that comes up every now and then. But that's not a massive issue. So it's sort of getting them to forecast and think and have this sort of like little moment of like, okay, if everything could be perfect, what would you actually do? And so it's like, okay, so we're not working towards fucking no pain. We're working towards that. Like, that is where I'm getting you. And so this journey does not stop. Like, this journey starts when you are pain-free, basically. Like, that's the first 6-12 weeks.
It's definitely, I like that, because I guess it's kind of the same thing I try to do, but
it mirrors what you talk about.
But they come to me for a different reason. I do have people who come to me who like hurt in the deadlift and squat. So, you know,
but technique is half the battle. Yeah. Like,
but the same thing. If someone comes to me with the regular goals, like, oh, I just want to get strong in my deadlift, or I want to lose some weight, or I want to build some muscle. Whatever the goal is, it is that, you know, we have achieved that. What is long term, and how does this part we're doing apply to to the big story? Because the decisions I make along the way are gonna be dictated a bit by what that end goal is.
Yeah.
Because we can get caught up in so much little bits of information, little bits of data that we end up, you know, kind of running in circles. But you know, is it working towards that bigger goal? Sometimes I find some people get caught up in one thing and try and get affirmation on something that is really, really small. But it's like, how much is that attributing to
Yeah, and I think people can only see what's in front of them the first sort of little bit.
Yeah.
And so you have to be that person, that visionary for them, if you will, that goes, hey, like, we're not talking about the next 4 weeks of your life. We're talking about, like, what do you want to do in 10 years? Like, where are you going to be? Like, you know, if you've got a newborn, like, you're going to have a 10-year-old, do you want to be able to not run around in the park with them because you've got a shitty hamstring? Like, that's the shit that I think Gen Pops really hold on and relate to. And it's like, I was talking about goal setting to my staff member last week, and she's like, yeah, I know. So I like ask them their goals, and their goals to get pain-free, and so I write that down, and I'm like, okay, but it's not their goal. And also that's not objective either. That's just a subjective, like pain is subjective. So even if you do rate that from a 4 back to a 0, yes, that's some sort of progress, but how do we then talk about like their goals being way more than that? And it's like the goal at the end of the day is to be happy with everything that you're doing, and to have that sense of fulfillment, or building a legacy or something. You know, like you need to break those walls down. And someone goes, I want to lose 10 kilos. And then it's like, okay, why? I'm like, I look a bit frumpy. I don't really like it. Why? And they go, I just, I'd like to have a partner, and I just don't feel comfortable going out and talking to guys. Okay, why? And then it's like, well, I just like, eventually I would like to have a life for myself with a family, and, I want to bring children into the world, and I want to be a good role model for them. And it's like, cool, that is your why. You can, doesn't matter if you deadlift or if you do cardio classes or whatever, but if you bring it back to the deep why that we all have, that's somewhat around that sort of area. And, you might not want kids, or you might want to, be able to educate 10,000 people or whatever it is, but we all have this like desire to be more. And I think we surface level goal set.
This is interesting. So I'm just gonna come in because there's a business exercise called "A Drill Is Not a Drill," and it's a way of working out what your customers are truly motivated by and how you can solve their problem. And it goes, a drill is not a drill. A drill is a hole in the wall, and a hole in the wall is not a hole in the wall. It's a place to put a screw, and it's not really a place to put a screw. It's a place to hang a shelf, and it's not really a place to hang a shelf. It's a place to put your books, because their real goal is they want to read, right? But to them, they
10
think,
steps back.
But they might come to you and say, I need a drill.
Yeah.
And that's not their motivator. And then basically you can work back from there and go, well, what if we just skip the drill out and find another way to create the book side of thing and actually fix their problem? And I think it would definitely be similar in your world, in that their goals, the classic one would be weight loss, or I want to put 50 Ks on my bench press. And it's like, how do you keep them in perspective over that time period?
Sometimes I find, and you might find that getting that why sometimes is really hard.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
I struggle with it.
Because people don't know themselves, right? They've not thought it through.
Especially when you're talking to people who may be a little bit younger, or who are just like, they just see someone else doing that. That looks cool. Or like, he gets lots of chicks, so I'm gonna do what he did. And it's like, well, if the goal is to get, like a partner or whatever,
stop being a dick.
Circumnavigate.
Start with that.
But it's literally like, I always struggle to call myself this, because I feel it sounds a bit wanky and like is very sort of negatively spoken about. But like, we are literally like life coaches. Yeah. Like I cringe when I talk about that word.
I feel the same. I feel you cringe at it.
But you are. Yeah. Like, I'm literally, and I used to sort of say, like 27, like I don't have life experience. Like, what are you talking about? But here I am talking to 50-year-olds who own, build like thousands of dollar businesses and whatnot. And I'm just life coaching them on like, okay, well, like you need to get adequate sleep and you need to work on your recovery. And it's like, I've sort of brushed off the fact that I'm young, and sort of gone, like I still have value to be able to help these people. And it's at the end of the day, like the method is just exercise, but it's the principles and whatnot that surround all of that to get someone what they truly want.
I guess it's also how much they let you do as well, because you might find someone who might not know their why. They might not want to change their sleep. They might not want to do much else. It's like, well, it's either, I guess I feel sometimes I either not going to help them because they're not going to help themselves, or B, it's like, you know, we start here, and does this progress? Does this goal progress, or does this? Do you find you're that way as well? Like, does over time the goal expand and change, and the why changes over long periods of time with each client?
I think it always will, right?
Yeah.
Like, depending on their life circumstances, and like you'd probably have noticed this being a new dad. Like
everything's changed.
Just like your perspective on everything, like you probably want to make sure that you're super fucking proactive so you can get home and spend time with your family and whatnot. And it's like the goal now isn't to work 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. The goal now is to be able to create a life that you love.
It's almost dangerous to work off the presumption that the goal's not going to change. You almost have to work off the fact that it's going to change. Because as a coach, and a practitioner, could you see yourself in a situation where if you're still working towards a goal that's no longer relevant 6 months in, then you're doing harm, right?
Well,
potentially.
You're made redundant. So this is why I stopped talking about pain, because technically a really fucking good physio gets someone pain-free in a couple of sessions, and then they're redundant. And then their job isn't there anymore because they've helped in the goal that they set. But because they set such a superficial goal, it was very easy to achieve. Whereas if you go through all of that and it's like, okay, cool, well, when you feel like you are that inspirational role model for your children who is doing everything in their life to support their family and be there and be an active role and also help the community and whatever else their goal is, like that's a process. Like, I have a business coach and it was like, okay, 2 years minimum working with me. We're not going to get anything. Like, how are you actually going to get anything done in any less time than that? Like, a business shouldn't be something that you tap in and tap out of, just like training. It's got to be that long term.
Wouldn't that be good if you could just take your clients on and be like, 2 years, sign up now?
Do it. Why not?
That's a great point. I never thought about it that way, right?
I mean, like, if you're training someone to be a powerlifter, who's ever got to world class in 2 years? No one.
No.
Well, you were saying before it takes at least 3 years, doesn't it?
At least 3 years before they're set up to be an athlete.
Yeah.
You know, because there's so much development they got to do, and they have to learn those lessons themselves. It's almost you got to like build those lessons up for them, build up those life experiences. It's like, you know what's going to happen, so you set it up for them, and then they go through it, and then they learn.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I can't tell them. You can't tell them what's going to happen. You can't tell them what they're going to do. You can't always tell them they're like, if you're right. You just sometimes have to let them experience. That's what ends up building that athlete, a really good athlete.
There's a business there that I swear, if you just, I mean, this is completely on a segue, but like, if you just advertise, in 5 years, I can make you world class if you do what I tell you. What's that worth to you? And just give me that money up front. and for the next 5 years, I'll get you there.
But why, like...
Well, because that's what they want. Why would they do it months a month?
We've done disservice to ourselves and the industry by not talking about that.
Good point, yeah.
And I think I've definitely done that in the past too, where I've gone, oh, you know, like it'll be 6 weeks and then we'll reassess. And they're like out of pain. They're like, see ya. It's like, but they're not even close to anything. And like I've just started sprint training just as another side hobby to help learn and educate my clients on, you know, running mechanics and things like that. So that's sort of something I've taken up. And so I literally like called up this national level coach and I was like, yo, can I join your squad? And she was like, yeah, okay, fuck yeah. I mean, if you don't ask, you never know. But there's people who've been there for 10 years with this same coach. And it's like, these people are aiming to get to the Olympics. Like they know and they understand the process. But the general person is like, oh, no, like that's a long time. And I'm like, cool, you're going to stop exercising in 5 years?
Yeah, are you going to stop needing to pick things up in life? Or like being strong's important, right?
Yeah. The lessons never stop, though. Of
course they don't.
It comes 6, 7 years later and like, those athletes have been with me for a long time, still learn a lot. You know, I'm still learning a lot too. You know, it just keeps going. It's a constant journey, isn't it?
The other thing on that I was talking to my business coach about literally on Friday was, you know, like if you set up these like, oh, okay, 12 weeks or 6 months or whatever your time frame is, it's like people will tap out when things get hard.
Yeah.
And if you are not there to help pull them through those things and be like, no, I'm not giving up on you and I'm not letting you give up on yourself, like that takes time. Like if you give someone 6 weeks, they're like, oh, it's too hard, I just prefer to not. And it's like, if you actually want to help, you need to have at least a year, 2 years to properly put people through this. And that's a little bit that I'm changing through my business model as well, because it's like I'm so frustrated of not being able to provide the value that I know I can provide. Mm-hmm. And I've seen clients who've done 12 weeks with me versus 3 years with me. And I think we do a disservice to the industry by selling ourselves short and saying it's only like a 12-week process or whatever you want to sign them up for, because it's not. And so we're lying to them, but we're also, I think it comes back to a self-belief thing. Like when you're young in the industry especially, you're like, oh, I don't know if I can like get someone these results. And it's like, well, I'm in the middle of creating like a coach's mentorship and I'm fucking sick of these weekend courses that you remember 10% of 2 weeks later that you've just paid $600 for. And it's like, that's not actually providing someone of value. And how do they go back and reflect on that and then implement it with a client 3 weeks later and then come back and review and assess and change things and talk about it? So I'm in the process of creating like a coach's mentorship that's going to be a year commitment. Because
that's the way to do it. Fucking is.
Like,
yeah.
And it's not because, you know, I want to get a boatload of money, but it's because people need that much time to even start to get anywhere near what they want to achieve. And I think it needs to be the same with clients. Mm-hmm. Like it's almost like I take people through like a client mentorship because of all the facets of life that we deal with. So
we were, when we were speaking with Sarah, we had one of Gus's best lifters on, Sarah, and we were discussing like the realities of what it's like to be an elite powerlifter. And what we were kind of saying is there's lots of people who are like, I want to be like Sarah Rainbow, right? But then they want you to do it in that kind of in 1 year, and I don't want to have to eat 5,000 calories a day for fucking 3 weeks. I don't want to have to do all the sleep stuff and all the recovery stuff and all the kind of shit you have to do in your life to actually get there. And it is, yeah, you almost have to readdress that.
You can't explain to anyone what it takes, because that is something you learn over time. You said like I set up those lessons over years. Like I know my approach to like the person's first comp, second comp, third comp. You know, because at every level, because you can just keep, it's nearly infinite rabbit hole, isn't it? Like you can keep building on how much they gotta fine tune when you get more and more and more elite. But lost my train of thought. Completely lost my train of thought.
You're talking about getting more elite, and every comp you sort of learn something new, and you can't like fast track that.
So you try to explain that to someone else, and they just get absolutely scared of what that is. It's like, well, you might be a person who could do that one day. It's just you haven't learned all the lessons, and you haven't built that passion that builds over time, and that drive that once you've done your first comp, you're itching a bit more in third and second comp, and there was always that one competition where all of a sudden it's like, holy crap, I love this sport.
So do you just out of interest, do you plan for the fact that I know once they hit their first comp, they're going to get that adrenaline hit, and then I can kind of adapt after that? I know I can take them to another level. Do you
progressively come to, like it still really depends on their goal and how they're feeling after. And I would assess where they are at mentally, like how excited are they for another one or not, or is that it? Was it just a thing they wanted to try? But it also comes to the initial question of the why as well. Like if their why was to be elite, then yes, I'm setting them up for setting off for that, because I can't teach them straight away everything. They have to learn. They have to learn along the way. They have to make the mistakes along the way, and it's my job to set up direct them.
Yeah.
So there's like every time there's like a couple of pathways to take. It's like, all right, which way which way do we go? Which one? And it just takes years and years and years to find the right thing.
It reminds me of saying that Ben Pekulski has, that you don't, the goal isn't to become a millionaire. The goal is to become a better person, and it's the process and the journey. Probably misquoting him, but it's the person that you become along the way. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the whole point, right? Like at the end of the day, it's cool to squat like 300 kilos or whatever, but it's the person you become along the way who has to suffer through all those, like nights when they don't get to go out with their friends or drink, or they have to, surplus their calories and feel a little bit uncomfortable and push those barriers. And the person that you become, because as a result of the diligence and everything that you've been through, that's sort of what you're chasing, not the actual 300 kilo squat or whatever it is.
Yeah, because if they don't love who they are, doing that, then it's just not gonna.
They're not gonna get there
because it's too much.
Or they get there and tap out immediately because they hate it. They hate themselves for it.
The millionaire thing's a really good point, because like, I had a mate who talked about this. He's a tech entrepreneur. He's like, I got loads of friends who want to be Elon Musk, right? And they want to be Elon Musk because he's a fucking tech billionaire. He's fucking cool. He does all this stuff. It's like, but if you asked him, what's the best thing about his life? It's all the shit he gets to do in his businesses, because that's what he's focused on. He just happens to be a billionaire because of it.
Yeah.
He didn't start going, I want to make all this money. He just happens to be that rich because he's putting his passion into all the fucking making rockets and all this kind of shit, right? But that was the goal. So if you focus on the 300 kg squat, you're going to really struggle. Whereas if you focus on, you know what, I want to fucking dedicate myself every day. I want to live, breathe this. I love it. You know what I mean? I'm going to do everything I can. You'll end up getting there anyway, right? That's like almost a byproduct of it.
Yeah. It's like setting process goals and habits to get you to your goal, as opposed to like people who have like, oh, I just want to get on stage and compete or whatever it is. And it's like, then they're the people who rebound the hardest and gain all the weight back that they've lost because they weren't actually in it for the right reasons.
Yeah, weight's a big one, isn't it? Weight's a big one. It's like
fucking 8-week challenges.
Fuck, it's like just change your life like a little bit all the time, and you'll get like, do you know what I mean? And then you'll always be that way. But that's not
sexy, and no one wants to do that, and that's boring, and like. But then so 10 years time.
Yeah, right.
It's like this little battle. Like, you're completely right in terms of that. What we need to achieve you need to work with this person for a year or 2 years, but that's hard to sell. So he goes, I can get you there in 3 years. But when people say 12 weeks, or 8 weeks, this 8-week challenge, you're going to lose 20 kilos.
Quick wins. That's what people.
Quick wins, but then a hard fall too. And then
but it sucks not only for the client because they fall off and they've just gone from all this support and doing everything at 130% that's unmanageable and non-maintainable through to like crash and burning. But it sucks for us as well because we can't help them reach their potential because you've only given them a taste test. And keep pulling things back from my business coach, but he is very much about living and dying on the hill. So he talks about like you get to choose which hill you die on, but like living 100% to your purpose. And if like you believe it takes people 3 years to get there, then fucking sign them up for 3 years. Like if like there is nothing and it's just we sort of default, and I've done this before and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do that. And then I like default and sort of like go back into my shell because of my insecurities. And therefore I'm not getting someone to where they want to be because I fucked up. And like I talked to, like I have a couple of mentees as well who I work with, and I was talking to her about it. I was like, yeah, she was like, yeah, I just sort of like, I was like, you bitched out, didn't you? And she's like, yeah, I just didn't like, because she didn't ask for the sale, or she didn't go to that point. She was like, oh yeah, cool, like let me know if you need anything. Oh. And it's like, it's so frustrating.
Sales training is the biggest thing.
And it's, the best thing about it, you're selling someone their health and life transformations, which is massive. So like someone told me like a while ago, they were like, oh, like you're a good salesperson. I was like, I'm fucking selling you your own health and fitness. Like, it shouldn't be that hard. Like, I shouldn't have to sell this to you.
Instead, if you just this statistic, and it was if you just request something, you're like 60% chance of making it happen or making the sale. But so if you request something for a particular reason, you got like a 93% chance of actually getting your request that you asked for.
Yeah, I mean, we can go into like sales here. My wife she's incredible at sales. She used to run a massive sales team. She now runs our business, but she's taught me heaps, and 99% of it is, do you feel like you're adding value, right? And for anybody in this industry, you are 100% adding value to someone's life. Everybody knows what somebody who is fit, strong, healthy, happy, like that's a good place to be, right? So if you're actually solving a problem for someone and helping somebody, you should have no problem saying, I want to help you, and that's going to cost this. Now, don't get me wrong, if you're selling fake watches and stuff, yes, I can understand where there's a bit of, I feel bad about asking for it, but I think you got to throw away. I think this industry is really bad at it.
So bad.
Because the other thing is, if you're doing an 8-week challenge and you get somebody to another 8-week challenge down the line, you've failed them, really, haven't you? They shouldn't be coming to 2. If it's a transformation thing, you should have done your job and they should be transformed, which obviously takes consistency. But stop fucking worrying about whether people want to pay for what you've got, because deep down they do, right? But
the thing is, no one sits in front of a personal trainer just for shits and giggles.
Right,
like,
exactly.
Like you're there. So my previous employer, he was a PT, and he had like 25 ex-phys and physios working underneath him, and he was just managing the business side of things. And like, he obviously, worked hard on the sales and things like that, and understands how to tap into that, which I think we really sort of struggle with. And I think, yeah, if you can, like he was saying that, to just have a consult with you, they have to get up, they have to put workout gear on, they have to drive to the gym, they have to sit down with you for probably better part of an hour. They have to go through some movements that might make them feel uncomfortable, and then they have to, that's a lot of steps someone's taken just to spend an hour of their time with you, which is one of our most valuable assets. Like, people aren't doing that for shits and giggles. People want someone to be like, they want to realize that this is the person who's going to help them. And if we bitch out and go, oh yeah, like I guess if you want to do some training, like, yeah, then it's like, yeah, I'm here, dickhead. Like, tell me.
Oh, yeah, or you. The other thing you do is like you bend over on price, and it's like, just don't devalue yourself. That's one thing you did really well with Lifters League, and that you do now. Like, you're expensive,
but worth it.
But you're expensive because you're fucking good at what you do. Like, the value is, obviously you don't want to way overdo as opposed to value, right? It's got to match the value. But if you're really fucking good at what you do and you can do something for them, then value yourself appropriately, right?
I think people put money and ethics so close together. So it's like, if they charge more, they feel bad about charging more because they're not giving themselves that value. It took me a long time.
Yeah, of course.
Me too. And I had to. I got to this point literally recently where I was like, I already feel like I'm probably one of the most expensive ex-phys in Brisbane. And then I've had to up my prices because I have someone new coming on with me, and to make her look more attractive, the price needs to marry up. Like, we can't be charging the same price if I've got 6 years experience and she has 0.5. Yeah. So I had to up my prices, and it's awkward, it's hard, and you are going to lose some people, but at the end of the day, I had a second solution. And she was, a lot more financially viable option for some people. And, if you ever want to scale, and we were talking about this before, you want to do education. It's like, how much is your time worth to spend with one person when you can educate thousands?
Yep.
Exactly.
And that's the thing that I struggle with, but I think we both have to come back to and be like, I can, sell my time for an hour, or I can educate thousands of people and the value of that. It's like, is it worth one client? Probably not. I love clients, don't get me wrong, and I still want that, but you can help more people with.
No, of course, and there's and it doesn't mean that they then don't access the services at all. Like you've given them an alternative. It's just more in line with their goals, right? My mate who was talking about when he was doing website design, fuck it, this is genius, right? He had, I don't know, 20 clients, and he doubled his prices and just said, I'm worth more now, I'm better. Sent them all an email saying, look, I'm worth double. So that's what it's going to cost. He said, I lost half. He said, I literally lost half my clients. He said, but I made the same money and I work half as much. But I mean, the extra genius was, instead of filling the extra time with more clients, he just decided not to work anymore. So he did he went to like 14 days a month or something, earning the same money. But that, in terms of your industry, like, and what you guys are trying to do, that is really, really, really important, isn't it? Like, you've got to free yourself up and value your time hugely, because you can get roped. I mean, you're in a situation now where you're getting more and more and more clients, right? And it's like, when does it become unmanageable? And
I think there's so much just your own
limiting
confidence and how you value yourself. Because I found the more I've valued myself, it's just, then it was actually never a problem, no matter how high the price had gone. It was never, if people wanted to work with me or I valued it enough, then I'd never had a problem selling.
Well, that's the other thing. A lot of people don't even ask, are you happy to pay this? You convince yourself, oh, they'll never pay that. And it's like, and then you ask them, like, fuck, yeah, of course. Yeah, definitely. If you can get me here, I'll pay you. And sometimes they may even pay you more than you think, right?
I remember I need to see, this is actually the first time I met Andrew Locke. It was about 5 years ago. And I had serious injuries, and no matter who I went to, no one could fix me. Then I was down the rabbit hole of surgery, and it's like, I don't want surgery. And I've heard of Andrew with non-surgical approaches to fixing some of the knee injuries I had. And I was ready to pay whatever. I literally took $600 with me, so I had no idea how much it was going to cost. He ended up doing it for free, because we ended up having great conversation, and ended up actually telling him to come to Lifters League, and he ended up working with us for like 3-4 years. So that was a good find. But yeah, I think some people are there who be willing to pay if you're valued yourself enough.
And it's, it's partly you have to value yourself, but also like the amount of work that we don't realize that we've put in behind the scenes to go through all of this. And like, I've built a moderate presence online to the point where it's like, hopefully now the people who are coming to see me already know, like, and trust me. They don't care what I cost. They're like, you're the person who can help me.
Yep.
And so you have to be able to, like, in the industry, we have to eventually stop trading time for money.
Yeah, and was in my industry, in film production, I come up against this all the time, where people are like, oh, but it only takes you, you film, it takes this amount of time, and it only takes you X amount of time to edit this thing, right? So why are you so much? What I always say is, you're not paying for my
time
90 minutes, you're paying for my 10 years of busting my ass to learn the fucking shit that allows me to do it so well for you. Yep. And like, for you guys, like, how long have you spent fucking at midnight going through research papers and the other thing is, for you lot, like, you'll be constantly honing and updating your methods and all that stuff. Like, that, then they're paying for that as well, right? Because they're accessing the fucking outcomes.
Yeah. Well, like, a surgeon is like 10 grand or a minimum, like probably 20. I think for like back surgery, it's like 20 grand, and they spend maybe a maximum of 20 minutes in one consult with you and maybe 2 hours in surgery. Like, you're paying for an outcome. You're not paying for the time that you see them. And the exact same thing, like, they've done this for, 10 years of study and 10 years in the field, and you're paying that. So.
Fuck, we turned it into a business. Business and fitness podcast.
All the principles just are all the same. They just apply to
area.
different fields, but essentially the core principles are the same.
They are, aren't they?
So basically, sign up for 3 years and you'll fucking get what you want. Don't expect quick fixes.
It's actually making me think about how I should.
I seriously think if you market in 3 to 5 years, I will get you to here if you do everything and within reason. If you do everything I tell you and you commit to that, would you commit to that? The thing is, you don't need 50 people to do it. You need 4, and then you're like, sweet, good to go. Anyway, maybe that would help you get better results as well. I don't know. Maybe there's something.
But then you're working with people who are that committed, and you've got that long-term vision. Like I used to, when I worked in my previous company, it was you pay at the end of every session, which is what happens in allied health, which is why I dislike it so much.
Yeah.
But it's like you pay at every session, so it's like, oh, do you want to come back? And every time felt like you had to resell them.
Oh, fuck that.
And it's like, if you have torn your ACL, it's a minimum 9 months recovery. Like, why don't you just, like, if you're actually committed to that, we'll just lock that in now. Like, because your ACL injury isn't getting better in anything less than that.
True. I mean, and you have at least the benefit of that ACL is always going to be there. So there's always that nudge for them to kind of do something about it. With you, I remember having a discussion with you and you were like, I'm just fucking over dealing with clients who aren't going to go the distance. Like, and you were just like, I just need to weed out the ones that aren't going to do what it takes.
3-year contracts,
we'll
weed them out.
They're fucking committed then, right?
Yeah.
So you know they're in it. They're in it, right?
Absolutely.
So you know you can work with them long term. They're pretty
and
good.
then you can actually program them accordingly. Like I was programming someone being like, oh, I don't know if they're coming into the next session. And it's like, how do you long-term periodize program someone?
I think there's one thing I do. Like I sell my main thing I sell is management plans. So it's like, you know, I am your coach and I manage injury management, recovery management, stress training program. That's what I actually sell. My coaching sessions are actually a different service. You pay to come see me for my time. Otherwise, the results are going to come from me strategically coming up with a plan for you in all these areas, and we tackle one thing at a time. Let's get the training going. Okay, let's look at the nutrition. Okay, how is that working? So, what things need to be addressed? Like, and then it just keeps snowballing.
Life coach.
Yeah.
We all cringe, but literally. So, but that's the thing. Same with me. Like, people are like, oh, how much are you? And I'm like, okay, you're comparing me to every other exercise health professional who charges by their time. I have like systems and processes. I have you could like messaging services where you can send me any videos of any technique or questions, or I get people who'll message me on the weekend and be like, oh, I fucked my ankle, or this happened, or how do I do this? And I'm there for them. But that's why I charge what I charge, because I'm not doing that for 60 people. I'm doing that for a select group of people who are very committed to this, but I'm equally invested back in them. And it's like, on top of that, I've got an app that has all my apps. There's videos of me demonstrating the exercises. So it's literally like virtual coaching, and you get exact technique. And then it is all that sleep and recovery aspect as well. And it's like, that is what my price is worth. It's not 45 minutes a week with me. That's not what you're paying for. That is a percentage of what I do.
I think it's the way to do it. And it's just try and somehow turn it to.
Well, I mean, the other thing is like, do less, but be cheaper. That's fair enough. But don't then go to a Ferrari garage and want to hand over 50k and expect to that's not how it works, right? But for some reason in this industry, everyone's like, well, everybody does the same thing, and
there's a fair bit of work to put in people when you do this, because you are quite involved with that person.
I've spent hours on the phone to like just individual clients, just backing them off the fucking edge of the cliff where they're like, no, I'm done, I'm out, sucks, rah, rah, rah. And I'm like, no, that is not okay. That's not like what you're just going to like put up with this the rest of your life, the pain that you have, or the like, you told me that you want to be a role model for your daughter and be a strong woman who, you know, is able to conquer the world and do all these things. Do you think that is getting you there? And it's those conversations that, like, I had a client who messaged me the other day. He's like, Zen, back's feeling good today. I'd love to just spend our session going for a walk and having a chat with you. Mental health isn't great. And that's what he fucking needed. And
Sweet, yeah.
and that's what they're paying for. They're paying for you to be their person. It has little to do with the exercise.
Well, that's
really.
I mean, that's what that comes up again and again, right? You just basically chat with your clients.
But this is also why, like, I think this is why there's a strong relationship between how you're coaching and your business model and understanding your business, because, you know, you can't go to the standard, typical cheap, you know, you have to
Stop racing to the bottom. Fucking hate that shit.
just because if you're selling cheap, then your business model demands volume. You know, I've had to be expensive. It's like I've had to make myself be more expensive because I put a lot of work into one person to become where they do. So I can only take on, you know, a handful of clients, where in the past, well, you know, when I wasn't as thorough as I was, I had up to it's like 80 I got to 80 to 100 clients. But the thing is, that was systemized approach, and it was, you know, I take it that was the wrong.
There's nothing wrong with it, but don't.
But you learned
Be
that's
one of
not
those
what you wanted to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, yeah.
You know, because for me to produce the result I needed, you know, I needed to spend a lot more time with these people.
Yeah.
So the business model was around the outcome I wanted with people. So the business model
Working
changed
it backwards from there.
Yeah.
And you could be a personal trainer who's like, I just want to take 100 people and get them on average a bit better and happier and get them kind of in the right area, and that's worth X amount, and you could be happy with that. But that, like, you can't advertise that you're gonna change their entire life and do all this crazy shit and charge a little bit, and you can't give all that stuff and charge a little bit either, because you're gonna fuck yourself over. Like,
Yeah. And the thing is, like, perceived value as well. Like, if someone's like, oh yeah, Gus Cook, and it says like world class this and this many athletes have got to this level, and it's got all these list of qualifications, and it says $50 an hour, you're like, what?
yeah.
Like, you're looking at that and you're like, this guy doesn't value himself or his services at all. Like, you have to price accordingly, because people use the dollar figure as a perceived value as well before they've even met you. So if you're not pricing yourself too low or too high, then people are going to look at that and go, that's not right. Yeah. Or they're going to be like, you know, if you're charging $50, like, oh, he's just a shit coach. Like, he's just freshy or whatever.
We'll talk, yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck, we went off a tangent there.
All right, well, we better.
We probably, yeah. So we're an hour and 15 in.
I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
That was awesome.
Yeah. Thank you for inviting me on.
Thank you for coming.
I realized it was a little bit business as well as, we talked about
it. Got there in the end.
Yeah.
No, pain management, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
But awesome. I think it's important.
It all matters.
All right. Well, signing off. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.